Everybody, it's Mike, one of the admins from the Moon Landing Hoax Facebook group, and today I'm on Livestream number 11, and today I'd like to present to you a particular Apollo photo in the Apollo-11 record and why that particular photo debunks all of the debunkers that come to our group and try and argue that the evidence that we present that the moon landings were indeed a hoax is wrong. Okay, I've got a photo here on the right of the screen that I'm showing you. It's Apollo photo AS11-40-5894. That's Apollo 11 magazine 40 photo number 5894. And when you look at that particular photo, you notice that the lunar module is in silhouette. It's dark. Now, why is that? Because the Apollo lunar module, when it allegedly landed on the lunar surface, always landed to where the windows, this would be the front, I'm circling with my mouse cursor here, and the photo inset in the top right with the ladder. This would be considered what I'm circling the front of the lunar module, and it always landed opposite of the sun. So it didn't want the sun to glare, I guess, in the windows, which ostensibly they use to help guide and land on the lunar surface through those windows. But the sun is always behind the lunar module on every single Apollo mission. Now, the sun was also always low on the horizon. The reason they always landed when the sun was low on the horizon on the moon ostensibly was because of temperature. They didn't want the moon to get too hot with the sun being way up high in the lunar horizon, rather, way up there, and causing too much heat on the lunar surface. So they always wanted to land when the sun was close to the horizon. And you can see right here in the left photo I'm showing, AS11-40-5894 is an example. You see the shadow completely enveloping the front side of the lunar module. Now, the problem with that is the sun, if you take a picture, rather, or a photograph or any type of image while looking at the sun or from shadow, you're always going to see the object in silhouette. And I have an example here all the way from Apollo 14. Here, I cite an example. I took this image myself, and this image was taken in a parking lot of a Gold's Gym. You can barely see that it's a Gold's Gym there. The sun is directly behind, setting on the gym. You can see up here in the top right, this is a parking lot light. It's lit. So the parking lot light is illuminating the parking lot. I'm taking this picture. It's still daytime. The sun is up. But notice the building is in complete silhouette. Why is that? Because now if I turned around 180 degrees, everything would look, as we call it, as bright as day, right? Because the sun would be illuminating the object if we turn around. But when we look at the sun, we can see the sun, that's bright, but the objects in front of the sun, when we're looking at it, we're always going to see that in silhouette. Now, why can I barely see a Gold's Gym here written on the gym? You can see a little bit of the logo right here. Well, part of that is there is a concrete parking lot that's reflecting some light up. You've got the atmosphere of the Earth that's scattering some light around, and you got a parking lot light. So despite the fact that you have concrete, which has about 25% surface reflectivity. By the way, the lunar surface has surface reflectivity between 8 and 14%. So a concrete parking lot is double surface reflectivity. There is no atmosphere on the moon to scatter light like there is on Earth. Like you get a blue sky, it scatters light around, as you can see. That's why the sky is blue, of course. It's pitch black on the moon because you don't have an atmosphere. So in the top photo, you can see as an example here, I'm showing as a reference in comparison to Apollo 14. I've got three things working in favor of lighting up the object we see in the foreground over here, the building rather, right? We have the parking lot light, we've got the atmosphere, and we've got double the surface reflectivity being a concrete parking lot, okay? You know, nonetheless, it's in silhouette. So you look here, and this issue, if you will, is present in every single Apollo mission, right? So I've got the famous Apollo 14 photo down here, AS11-40-5894. You know, the astronaut is standing in the shadow, pointing it toward the lunar module. You have the sun right behind the lunar module, just like it's behind this Gold's Gym building here, yet it's completely illuminated. Why is that? Okay, so here's where it gets interesting, right? There are a bunch of what we call trolls on the internet, like to come into our group and argue with us, right? Now, people that have good faith scientific arguments, I have no problem with them. We welcome people like that. If we're wrong, we want to be shown wrong so we can move on to better evidence and dismiss the evidence that is not strong. The problem is these trolls do not make valid, honest points, right? So what they do is they'll look at this and they'll say, well, you know, the Apollo missions must be real because the Russians would have told us if they were faked, right? Which isn't really an argument, right? If I got smoking gun evidence of a fraud, you don't just turn around and say, well, the Russians would have told us, and that therefore we can ignore the evidence that it's a fraud, right? You wouldn't say that. That'd be ridiculous. So what they'll say is, well, there must be an explanation, and the explanation must be the albedo, which is a fancy word for surface reflectivity. But the surface reflectivity, you can look it up. This is all public record. Between 8 to 14% reflectivity for lunar surface. A parking lot is 25% if it's concrete surface reflectivity. So why then would 8 to 14% surface reflectivity cause this entire lunar module to be lit up? And we have the same problem in the Apollo-11 photography. We go over here and we can see Apollo photo number AS11-40-5894. You can even see the hot spot on the boot of the astronaut. I mean, it's just amazing. Look at that. The entire lunar module is lit up, as you can see here. There are numerous examples of this being lit up. By the way, I'll show you more in the record in just a moment here. Well, why don't I do that now? We'll make this simple here. We're going to go to, let's see if we can find it. Okay, so Flickr.com has all of the Apollo photos, which are retrieved originally from NASA. The official nasa.gov website you would go to, probably the best one is the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal, which I have pulled up right here. That's hq.nasa.gov/ALSJ. You click through to Apollo-11, then you go to Images, and then you got all the magazines here. So you click Magazine 40, and you can download each Apollo photo, and they even have a little ostensible description as to what happened and for that particular photo. These descriptions are edited by private parties, believe it or not, and Ken Glover, I believe, is the current manager of the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal, and it's not even done through a nasa.gov email. You got to go to a Gmail account. They give you a Gmail account you could link to. Click to Apollo Lunar Surface Journal at gmail.com. So that's how you communicate on the official, most extensive record that there is for Apollo. It's called the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal. But if you want to see them a little more easier, they are on Flickr. Okay, flickr.com/photos/Project Apollo Archive. You click albums, you can go to each magazine. The one with the most lunar surface photos is magazine 40 for Apollo-11. And as you can see here, the sun is directly behind the lunar module. They're in shadow right here. They're taking the camera photographing upward, and you could see this astronaut lit up like a Christmas tree, right? You can even see how dark it is inside the lunar module. There's not any lighting inside there. You see all the lighting from shadow, but that's not what's supposed to happen, right? What's supposed to happen is it's supposed to look like the photo I took over here. I'm circling with my mouse cursor. It's supposed to be in silhouette, okay? So the surface, now if the surface reflectivity is causing the notion that I guess the whole lunar module can be lit up like this, well, you know, that's interesting because that would have to be consistent, right? You'd have to consistently see that in all the Apollo photos. The problem is when we go to the photo I referenced at the beginning of this live stream, which is AS11-40-5894, we see right here that the astronaut is in silhouette. It's completely dark, right? So if the surface reflectivity, or perhaps the white suit of the astronaut that's taken the picture, the sun is bouncing off that astronaut, acting as a reflector and as a de facto reflector, and illuminating the astronaut in the left photo here, and in this photo I'm showing you over here, and numerous other ones. If that's possible due to either the surface reflectivity or the astronaut's white suit that's taken the photograph, you would see that effect consistent in all of the Apollo photography. You would not see a dark silhouette effect in this photo, AS11-40-5894, okay? Now you can go to the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal and get that particular photo. Let's go to it right here so we can see 5894. You can scroll down. I'll even show it to you for myself here. Where are we at? 5894. There we go. We click that, and excuse me for one moment. Open link. There we go. So 5894, here is the photo scanned directly from the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal. Look at how dark this photo is. It's ridiculous, right? It's clear that studio lighting, okay, is being used to illuminate the astronaut in the left photo, right? So when a photographer wants to illuminate somebody, they call it backlight photography. They'll use a reflector panel or lighting that they'll take to the studio to create that effect. Otherwise, it'll be dark, just like in that right picture, the one I'm showing you right here, AS11-40-5894. So the interesting part about all this is that this is actually the photo right here I'm circling that proves Apollo was taken in a studio. Right here, they just forgot to apply the studio lighting and the reflector panels to create the effect. So this is almost what I would say a whistleblower clue thrown in here, right? So a lot of professional photographers will argue and state that, you know, hey, these photos are impossible because, you know, you can see the hot spot on the boot from the reflectivity of the studio lighting that was used, and therefore, you know, these photographs are impossible. They're all going to show up exactly like they do on the right side, okay, in silhouette. But of course, these were famous shots used to sell the Apollo missions as a propaganda piece during the Cold War, ostensibly between the Americans and the Soviet Union, right? At least that's what we're told. The Cold War, we had propaganda to push around the world in the United States to make sure countries would be on our side during that conflict, and being the technological superpower, we could show off how great we were. And in order to do that, you had photographs like this. You know, people say, what is that? That doesn't look nice. That looks dark. I can barely see anything. So, you know, they just got cocky, and I don't know what the hell they were thinking, but they decided to use reflector panels and artificial lighting. The official record says that no artificial lighting was taken to the moon. Okay, so I just thought I would bring this up as my 11th live stream, and hope you guys find that interesting. Another thing I'm going to show you too, I recommend strongly going to allis.com/mythbusters. There's an article where they take down the famous Mythbusters episode, where they take a look at this picture the Mythbusters do, and they say, this is genuine because we can recreate that in our studio using miniature models. So, these people at the at the Mythbusters exposed page on allis.com. I can't pronounce their name, but these are two Russians, right? They always tell us the moon landings must be real because the Russians never told us. Well, here are two Russians right here I'm highlighting, and they are clearly telling us that the moon landings were a hoax in this article. But they tried to replicate the Mythbusters experiment, and the Mythbusters, what they did is they took a little, just like what these two Russians are doing here, they took a miniature studio set, took a Hasselblad camera, took lighting and one light source being the sun, tried to replicate this famous Apollo-11 photograph, right? Now, with the Mythbusters episode, because a lot of people like to drop in the comments, yeah, the Mythbusters debunked this, right? Well, the error in the experiment with the Mythbusters when they did it is the guy, the Mythbuster guy, I don't know what the hell their names are, but he's wearing a bright white shirt, right? And he acted as a reflector panel, his white shirt, so the light from the ostensible, sun from the studio trying to mimic the sun on the set for the Mythbusters bounced off the guy's white shirt and illuminated the astronaut, right? Well, the problem is that guy's white shirt is, probably 4 or 5 times higher than this entire model here, right? Another astronaut the size of one of these tiny ones right here taking the camera, that's not going to be enough acting as a reflector. The white suit of the astronaut taking the photo is not going to be enough to illuminate this whole lunar module, right? But someone with a white shirt, you can see the guy's wearing a dark jean jacket right here and a tie. If he's wearing a bright shirt and he's standing where the big studio light's going to hit him, it's going to bounce off his white shirt and it's going to completely illuminate the lunar module. So that's why the Mythbusters experiment was wrong. You can see they replicate the experiment here without using the, having a big white shirt to act as a reflector panel. And you can see how dark it is when they try to replicate the Mythbusters, quote unquote, debunking, if you will, of this particular photo, which many Apollo researchers and photographers all conclude, yes, this was shot in a studio. But what I think people don't focus on as much is what you have to do is you got to look for inconsistency. So if people are saying that the albedo surface reflectivity can illuminate the astronaut, or they're saying the white suit from the astronaut that's taking the photo, light's bouncing off the astronaut taking this picture and then returning and shining this astronaut and the whole lunar module, just as we can see in this photo right here, illuminating the whole damn thing, right? Well, then the effect has to be consistent, right? And if it's not consistent, then we know that excuse they're pulling is complete bunk. Okay, and this is the photo right here that proves it. AS11-40-5894. Completely in silhouette. This is the way it should be on the moon. This is the way the photograph should be if you were taking it from this perspective, if you don't have studio lighting. But if you do have studio lighting, it looks like the picture I'm circling right here, and it looks like the picture I'm circling right here. So anyway, I thought you guys would find that interesting. We'll see you on the next live stream. Have a great day and take care now. Bye-bye.